Everyone, welcome to episode 24 now of The Bottom Line. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Syed. We have another very special episode for you guys today. As always, we're going to kick things off with our tech update from Syed. Syed's also going to dive into his personal checklist for what he looks at when identifying a good altcoin project. We're going to briefly touch upon the crypto conference that was held over in Miami over the weekend. And we're also going to shift focus to the market, tracking things that we want you to keep an eye on, as well as Yellen's apparent backtrack on keeping the interest rates low. And we're going to conclude this episode recapping our stock picks for last week and giving our picks for this week. And we also have an announcement to make in the conclusion of this episode, so you definitely want to stick around for that one. With that being said, Syed, the floor is yours for the tech update.
Okay, everyone. Hope everyone's doing great. It is a humid day, so hopefully you're staying inside and not getting sunburnt out there. And if you are outside, then make sure that you have your sunscreen on and that you're hydrated and all that. But to get started with the tech update, not a lot of stuff happened, but there are a few things that I wanted to highlight. So a Japanese company called Fujifilm, simply known as Fuji, right? It got hit by a ransomware attack and it shut down parts of its network. This happened on June 2nd. And again, ransomware is a major theme that we cover every week because these are attacks happening. I'm not gonna go into too much detail as to what happened, exactly like how the attack happened. You can always read the article, which I'll leave in the description below. But basically, they were like, they're carrying out an investigation into possible unauthorized access to server from outside the company, and as part of the investigation, the network is partially shut down and disconnected from the external correspondence. That's what they said in a statement. Again, you can read the article in the description below to find out more, and I'll keep you all updated next week once there's more developments on this. Next up, the New York metro system, it got impacted by a cyber attack. So a hacking group believed to have links to the Chinese government penetrated the Metropolitan Transportation Authority's computer systems in April, exposing vulnerabilities in the vast transportation network that carries millions of people every day, right? And the hackers did not gain access to systems that control train cars, and rider safety was not at risk, transit officials said. But this did happen though, and this happened in April, but this article got released this past week, so I guess they released it late, but this is something to keep an eye on. Again, the breach was the third and most significant cyber attack on the transit network, North America's largest, of course. Well, for those of you that have been in New York City, it's the largest metro system in North America, right? So the hackers are targeting it, and this just goes to show that like cyber attacks are like the cyber criminals are like they're trying to target every single sector out there, whether that's healthcare, cybersecurity, tech, or even government, right? And we saw that with the pipeline as well, right? The Colonial Pipeline one. So yeah, just goes to show like nothing's safe right now, and for everyone to stay safe, for governments to stay safe, they need to be on top of their game. Yeah. Now moving on, another ransomware, and this time it's this ransomware disrupted the largest ferry service in Massachusetts. So the ransomware actors have disrupted the largest ferry service operating outside of Massachusetts, or around the Boston, New England area, and this basically disrupted passengers and commercial traffic. And the outage meant that the customers were unable to book or change vehicle reservations online or by phone. However, existing bookings would be honored, and rescheduling or cancellation fees would be waived. And one thing to note, thank goodness, but like there's no impact to safety of the vessel operations, as the issue does not affect the radar or GPS functionality. So that's a good thing. And scheduled trips to both islands continue to operate, although customers may experience some delays during the ticket processing. Again, it didn't impact them. It didn't impact them like in their service or anything. But as we can see here again, that nothing's safe out there. If you're on the internet, you're prone to these attacks, and that's why your security has to be on point. Another security event that happened was a 0-day vulnerability in WordPress's plugin, and it's under active attack. And I talked about another WordPress attack that happened a few episodes back, and this is just the development on that. You can read the article in the description below. But WordPress again is another one where like their plugins aren't safe, and they're always under 0-day attacks. Once again, a 0-day attacks when like it just happens instantly and you gotta act on the fly. Your security has to be ready and you just gotta act unexpectedly, like you're not expecting and it just comes. So yeah, that's something to look out for, especially for those of you that use WordPress and have use WordPress plugins. Next up, not for all of us social media users, you may or may not know, but Facebook and Instagram will now let all users hide likes on the post. This update rolled out recently, and they're giving all users the option to hide public likes on their post, potentially appending a core dynamic of the social media platforms where like counts are seen as a sign of a person's influence, right? So just something I thought our viewers would want to know. And if you have the latest version of Instagram running on your phone, you should get a pop-up saying that you can hide the likes or show likes. So that's something to keep an eye out on. And now moving on to Amazon. Amazon devices will soon begin sharing your internet with neighbors and other small business. So this is an article I found interesting, and basically it talks about how beginning June 8th, Amazon devices such as Echo, Alexa, and others will be enrolled in automatically in the tech giant's recently released wireless mesh service called Amazon Sidewalk. The service will allow a small share of bandwidth with nearby devices that are connected but have sidewalk capabilities. Basically like a Wi-Fi on the go, that's what it is, right? And then lastly, Facebook announced that as we mentioned before, that Donald Trump's Facebook account got banned, right? They recently announced on June 5th that they're going to impose a 2-year ban on Trump's account. So till 2023, I believe. But yeah, that wraps up the tech update for this week, and I'll have more to come next week.
We were going to talk about your personal checklist when identifying which altcoins have a lot of potential that you look at before investing in. But before that, I just wanted to briefly mention in Miami, they actually held a cryptocurrency conference this week, and it was mainly focused on Bitcoin here, but I think Ethereum also, from what I've heard, stole the show. But I think one of the main topics that they were talking about is the fact that I think now what's happening is that in prior years it was mostly the price and the excitement around Bitcoin and all the cryptocurrencies were mainly driven by retail investors like yourself and myself, right? Mm-hmm. I think now they started to focus on the fact that institutions are also adopting, and I know we saw over the weekend that El Salvador is actually adopting Bitcoin as their currency of the future now, basically, right? So, I mean, I think there's more widespread adoption now, and that's something that they were trying to drive home over there. Because obviously there's a lot of FUD going on, FUD being fear, uncertainty, and despair, right? So, yeah. I think they did a lot to dispel that notion. They also briefly mentioned the fact that Elon Musk is having obviously a lot of influence really on cryptocurrencies. I know during the conference he tweeted the broken heart emoji, and Bitcoin's price started suffering as a result, right? So yeah. I think where we're at right now is that we're at the stage where, okay, the celebrities can come in, start driving the price up. I think Floyd Mayweather, I believe it was, showed up in an Ethereum shirt. So, I mean, I think you have a lot of celebrity endorsement, which drives price action. And whenever they say something negative about it, it seems like the market just throws up, right? So I think the next stage in the development of crypto as an official asset class is that it shouldn't react to celebrities endorsing or disparaging what the cryptocurrencies are all about, right? So I think that's what the main purpose of the conference was, really to drive awareness on the actual technology piece instead of it just being looked at as like a meme, like a Dogecoin. Mm-hmm. So I think the event itself was successful in that round. But it was definitely interesting to see. Like, I think they had over 50,000 people in attendance in Miami, and it was an extravagant event, right? It was a big event. And I know if things were open up here in Canada and travel was allowed, I think me and you would have been at that conference as well. But
100%, yeah.
But it was definitely interesting to see. I think this was the first in its kind where it's like everyone who's like a retail investor or an institutional investor. I don't know who was in attendance in particular. But I think there's a growing community that we continue to see, and despite the fact that there's been a short-term 30% correction, I don't think the excitement has died down. So I just wanted to bring that to the attention of our viewers ahead of this topic. Side, if you have any other thoughts to add to that before we dive into your checklist, um, I'd welcome that for sure.
Yeah. I saw a tweet actually that there was a conference like during the conference they were talking about Bitcoin, and someone a heckler randomly started talking about Dogecoin and how Dogecoin is the future to the moon and all that stuff. So I found that quite funny. But same points that you made, Deepak. It was a great. It sounded like a great event, and they talked more about like the technology, right? Like the blockchain technology, more as to show what crypto is about and how it can become how digital currency is the future. So that's my high level takeaway from there. But with that, to add on to that, I did want to tell our viewers about a few tips that I use, where I find a coin and then and it's just a part of my due diligence and how I research it. By all means, like before getting into this, I want to reiterate that it's not financial advice. This is just some of the ways I look at a coin and its potential. And feel free to add your thoughts into this, Deepak, because I'm sure you do some of the same things here. But I have four categories that I divided into. So one's market, second is technology, third is the community, and fourth is social media. So I'll talk a bit about each of them as I go through my list. So number one, the market. So in the market, you look at things like market cap, right? And Deepak, you and I have talked about market cap a lot offline as well. But basically, like in my opinion, if 5 million to 10 million is good for altcoins, market cap is important to a certain extent because it provides us with like a sense of how well the coin is being adopted by investors, right? And then number two for the market category is what is the trading volume of the coin? This is an important metric because it shows just how active the trading of the coin is over a given period of time, right? For example, 10% to 15% of market cap over 24 hours. That's an example of that, right? And then we're still on the market category. In terms of coin adoption, right? Is the coin available on popular crypto exchanges such as Coinbase, Binance, Kraken, and even in Canada, like we have Andex, Newton, and all those. Like how accessible is the coin, right? And then the last one for market is like examining the distribution of the coin. Like for example, are there whales with large holdings? This may be an indication of a centralization, right? Which may have adverse effects on the overall market price. Example, whale sells of leading to the others selling off, resulting in a drop of price, right? And we see that a lot in the market. And then just a little note I have too on the side, and I keep this in mind: if the creator of the coin or the token has a significant amount of holdings, this may be a major red flag for a potential of a scam. Like for example, the creator pumps on purpose to jack up the price and then sells, and we see that a lot with these scam tokens, right? Like SafeMoon, Shiba Inu, and all those quote unquote as they call shit coins, right? And we've talked about that before, but that was what I look for in market. Now moving on to technology, the more technical part. So has the white paper been published? I would go read the white paper and identify the technical and real world advantages it brings. What is the consensus method? Example, proof of work versus proof of stake. What is the technology stack? Example, like a generic structure. How does it differ from other cryptocurrencies? What does this altcoin have to offer that the others don't offer? And that's kind of like a deal breaker for me. Like, what does it have to offer? For example, if you look at a coin, altcoin like HBAR, right? Its transactions per second are really low compared to Bitcoin and Ethereum, and that could be a deal breaker for me to invest into it, right? That's just an example of how what I would look at there. Is there a scalability problem? For example, the transaction per second, and that adds on to my previous point, right? Like, not something you look at. Like Bitcoin, we know like that Bitcoin and Ethereum scalability is a problem. So that's where you look at altcoins, right? And HBAR is another example, and Cardano and all those altcoins, right? Next up for technology, what are the use cases? For example, are the use cases reasonable? And do they help to solve or better real world issues, or better invest new things of doing things? And an example of that's VeChain, right? They have partnerships with a bunch of companies. I know that they have a partnership removing plastic from oceans. So that could be one example, right? It's just a part of doing your due diligence. And then now moving on to category number 3, which is community. Is there an official website or blog? Right? You look at that. Are the developers active? How many developers are there? Is there a GitHub community? Is the GitHub community relatively active? The number of commits, comments, etc. Not going to get into too much detail there, but you got to look at their GitHub, their code, whatever they have out there. Has a roadmap been established in regards to what the coin has to achieve, right? Is the coin backed by foundations or investments? That's another one. I put that in community, but you can also put that in like technology as well, right? Is the coin backed by any foundations or investments? And then a few others based off for community. Obviously, is there a Reddit community? What are they posting about? Are there any red flags? Like this I mentioned before, like pump and dumps, campaigns, scams, number of subscribers, all that stuff. And then last one for community is are there any competitors to the coin? What is this coin doing differently than its competitor? And then for social media, again, this one's a big one. I saved this for last. And is there a social media presence? Example: Twitter, TikTok, Reddit, Instagram. What are they posting about? Again, red flags, and I have these red flags. Like, are there any red flags? Like, again, I'm gonna mention pump and dump schemes and scams are the major red flag you look for, and that's what you gotta do in social media and community, right? You gotta look for those. And then, are there any accredited companies or investors that back the coin? For example, businesses accepting the coin as a payment or a use case. That's something that I would check on for social media for. But those are just like some of the things I look for. I have more stuff too, but like this was like the meat of it, and I thought our viewers would find that helpful. When we say do your own due diligence, this could be a guideline, a starter to what to look for.
Yeah, no, sorry. I think that was very informative. I think the only real piece that I can add is just keeping in mind who the creator is, right? I think one of the projects that I like a lot is Cardano, and the creator of that is Charles Hoskinson, who is part of the Ethereum project, right? So if they have a track record of success, I think that's something also that we should take into consideration.
For sure, yep.
The show, I wanted to mention the 5 top things to watch in the markets in the week ahead. And I'm actually going to be referring to an article from investing.com, so we'll provide the link to that in the description to our video. But just to kick things off here, the first thing that we have to keep an eye on continuously, as we've mentioned over the past few weeks even, is the inflation threat, because all eyes will actually be on the latest CPI data, Consumer Price Index data, on Thursday. After last time when we mentioned the CPI coming out, it showed a much stronger number than previously anticipated, at 4% increase year over year. That marked a large sell-off in the markets because of the extra fear that surrounded the inflation threat. And that's something to, again, keep an eye on, because if this continues to be a trend, then it's going to show that, okay, yeah, inflation's in full force, and we actually have to brace for it, right? And I think this is also going to be complemented by the jobs report that is going to come out on Friday, which obviously, as we know, being in for the last year plus, the jobs report will indicate the strength of the economy, how well the recovery is taking form, and if the job market report comes underwhelming, then that shows that, okay, maybe we're not recovering as fast as we'd like, and that will likely lead to more bearish sentiment across the broad market. So definitely something to keep an eye on, both the CPI index and the jobs report on Friday. The other thing I wanted to mention here in this article is obviously the meme stock frenzy that's going on. So I know, Syed, you posted on our TikTok page on the AMC short squeeze that was going on this week. Obviously, on Friday, there was a little bit more of a sell-off that occurred. But again, AMC itself is going up and down like crazy.
To the moon.
It's hard. To the moon, exactly. At this point, fundamental technical analysis won't work on the stock. The price is very irrational right now. If you get it on the right time, you can make sizable gains, obviously, but you catch it too high up and you could be left holding the bag. So definitely, if you want to partake in this frenzy, make sure you don't take too large of a position. Obviously, manage your own risk. And just be cognizant of the fact that this was a $10 a share company before the short squeeze. It's currently sitting at over $40. hit over 70 at one point. So again, like you know what your baseline is and size your positions accordingly, right? So definitely keep an eye on that. Personally, I do think that the short squeeze might have a little bit more to go here, just because I think the sentiment hasn't shifted yet, and obviously the shorts have to cover, and we'll see how it reacts. Right? Obviously, it could just go right back to 10, or it could go to 200. We just don't know at this point, right? So again, if you want to partake, make sure you know your risk tolerance and don't invest more than you're willing to lose, right? So that's all I'll say about that. We also mentioned the infrastructure deal. So market participants, as usual, will be closely following negotiations that are occurring between the Democrats and the Republicans in Washington over President Joe Biden's proposed $1.7 trillion infrastructure deal. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, I believe I'm mispronouncing that name, my apologies, had said that the White House sees Monday, when Congress returns from a one-week break, as a critical date to see progress in these talks. Expectations of government spending on infrastructure have already boosted our value stocks this year, particularly in industrials and the material sectors, which have both gained around 20% since the start of the year, against a 12.5% gain for the S&P 500. So that sector is vastly outperforming the market on the heels of this anticipated infrastructure deal. Obviously, if there is a hiccup in this, then they could see a pullback, but all signs point to this deal materializing. But again, while it may be probable, it's not definitely a surefire thing. So definitely keep your eyes on it. And we're awaiting more news from Washington with regards to this. So again, keep your eyes up for this, and we'll provide more updates as we hear more as well. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the European Central Bank. So they're actually meeting on Thursday and will release its updated growth forecasts for 2021 and 2022. And policymakers will actually debate whether to prolong their support for the Eurozone recovery through emergency stimulus, much like we saw in the States, which is a decision that will hinge on how strong they believe the region's economic recovery is. Just from a glance here, I see that the COVID cases are actually ticking upwards again throughout Europe and the UK. So again, I think there are some concerns around that, despite the fact that the vaccine rollout has been largely successful. If we do see an uptick in these COVID cases, again, as a percentage, there might be some sort of restrictions being inputted again, right? So obviously the restrictions will slow down growth. But again, it's going to be interesting to see what the European Central Bank has to say, because they usually do have a good pulse on the market. So again, if you want to keep your eyes out on this, Europe is obviously one of the key figures in the economy, in the broad economy, right? So obviously you want to pay large attention to this as an overall investor, just to know what's going on from a macroeconomic standpoint, right? So again, keep your eye on that. And then obviously the UK is also going to pay close attention to Friday's figures that will come out on monthly GDP growth, so month over month. Mm-hmm. And again, this is another metric used to see how well the economy is recovering. And again, this in conjunction with ECB's guidance will give us a better picture on how Europe really sees the next few years panning out, right? So again, these are all different things going on. Some are more short-term implications, like the meme stock frenzy. Some have more long-term implications, like the European data, right? So again, as an investor, you want to know what the short-term and long-term trends are, both on a macro and microeconomic level. So again, keep your eyes peeled and be sure that you know what's going on before you make any investing decisions, especially for the long term, because if you are a long-term investor, then your initial entry price is very important. So again, keep all of this in your back pocket, and as soon as we find out more ourselves, we'll be the first ones to share this with you on our Bottom Line social media pages and on our weekly podcast episodes. So yeah, no, that's the top 5 things to watch in the markets this week, and we'll provide you updates as we hear more. What I want to mention here is Janet Yellen saying that higher interest rates would actually be a plus for the U.S., seemingly backtracking on overall sentiment that low interest rates are here to stay, at least for the interim. So again, the market has been really spooked by higher interest rates, and we saw as the yield was climbing up, growth stocks in particular suffered. So it's interesting to see her make these remarks. But yeah, so just summarizing again, we have this article that we're referring to here, and we'll provide the link to that article in the description. But obviously, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said that President Joe Biden's $4 trillion spending plan would be good for the U.S., even if it contributes to rising inflation and results in higher interest rates to combat that inflation, right? To just quote her here, she says that if we ended up with a slightly higher interest rate, interest rate environment, it would actually be a plus for society's point of view and the Fed's point of view. To continue, she says that we've been fighting inflation that's too low and interest rates that are too low now for a decade. We want them to go back to a normal interest rate environment. And if this helps a little bit to alleviate things, then that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. So again, I think what I've noticed is that I feel like we've hit almost a generational bottom in interest rates, because I think they were declining over the last 30, 40 years, really. So it seems that they have bottomed now, and they're going to only continue to rise. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see interest rates creep up to 2018, 2019 levels. But again, like, this is a little bit of a divergence, because from what I was hearing from policymakers was that we're going to keep interest rates low for until at least 2022, 2023. But it seems if we do have a fourth stimulus check, especially coming out in the States, which they're discussing right now, the fact is that they'll probably have to raise interest rates, because if they don't, then the money in circulation is far exceeding what it should be at a normal rate. And that'll result in heavy inflation, which obviously is not great for the overall strength of the economy, right? And obviously, with salaries not rising in in the same degree as consumer price index would suggest for these consumable goods that we buy on a day-to-day, then obviously our purchasing power as individuals goes down. So definitely something we want to keep our eyes on here. The interest rate is something that, as an investor, you should definitely keep your eye on, because as an investor, you also want to see what's going on in the bond market, right? And the interest rates obviously have a huge impact on the bond market, and by virtue of that, will have a big impact on the equity market. So again, this goes back to our earlier segment that we just finished talking about here, but you want to know what's going on from a macro level perspective to see how that might impact either sectors or asset classes, such as equity stocks, right? So again, keep this on your radar. And as they release more information, we'll keep you posted, but definitely do your own research as well, so that you get the information as soon as possible. Last segment of this week's episode here, we wanted to recap, first of all, last week's stock picks. So going first here, I mentioned silver as really a hedge to inflation, because silver does extremely well in periods of high inflation. So from a short-term perspective, it did see a little bit of a drop here. Opened the week at around $21.45 and closed the week at $21.23. So again, not much of a drop here, maybe max 1%. I think it's a little bit less than that. So it is relatively stable for now. Again, I think this is more of maybe not a week-long or 2-week-long hold. I think it is more so of a month, 2 months, 3 months type of hold. But again, this is a stock that will benefit if we do see more and more inflation. And as I mentioned, CPI index is coming out. If that indicates that more inflation is here to come, then silver is definitely going to benefit just as an asset class itself. So keep your eyes out on this chart.
Thanks, Deepak. And my pick for last week was a coin, and I talked about Kusama. Once again, to recap at a very high level, before looking at the chart, it's basically a self-described as Polkadot's wild cousin. And I talked more about this in our episode last week, so be sure to check out that segment. But to look at this chart, so let's look at it 7-day, just to show you all how it did. And again, crypto is really volatile, as we always mention, but it's up 3.31% right now. And as you can see, last week it started at $314, and now it's at $406. So it did do really well, but I see this coin as a long-term thing, because I see it going down just by looking at this chart. Crypto, you can never be too sure, right? But this just goes back to our the previous segment that we had regarding what to look for when you're investing into crypto, right? So we would just come here and look at its market cap and all that stuff, and like its market cap is still pretty, like, it's 3 billion, so it still has more ways to go. So and obviously it's self-described as Polkadot's wild cousin, so I believe that its blockchain and its foundation are are gonna lead it in the right direction going forward. The price is kind of high right now per coin, but who knows? Maybe a year from now it could double, right? And just for our viewers, like just to apply the stuff that I talked about in finding a crypto, CoinMarketCap is a great site. So here you can read about them, the coin. So here we can read about Kusama. We can find out what makes it unique, and then they have a bunch of resources here about talking about the coin. And the websites, their white papers, etc. So another great resource that I would use. But moving on to our stock picks for this week, and I'll go ahead and talk about my pick. So I'm staying with the short squeeze theme right here because Wall Street bets, they're the best. I'm just kidding. But this was surprising to me because I thought Build-A-Bear was long gone, like they were bankrupt or something, but they're still around, and they are a candidate. The short squeeze and Wall Street bets are targeting them as a major company, right, for the short squeeze. So as you can see, just looking at the 1 month, May 7th. So just a month ago, it was at $7.93, and now it's all the way up to $16.74. Like, Build-A-Bear still exists? That's my question, right? But apparently it does, and it's the target of Wall Street bets and short squeeze. So once again, like, this is a short squeeze play, and just like AMC, GME, very volatile. Don't invest into this without doing your due diligence. Don't invest blindly into this thinking you'll go to the moon, because it's a pump and dump type of thing, right? And it's really risky. So yeah, do your own due diligence and keep an eye out on Build-A-Bear for this week, as it could go to the moon. It could take you to the moon. But yeah, I'm gonna throw it back to Deepak so you can talk about his stock pick for this coming week.
My stock pick's actually quite a little bit different than Build-A-Bear Workshop here. So I'm actually going to be talking about Dominos Pizza, which is really we mentioned inflation being a threat again in this week's episode. We've talked about it in previous episodes as well. But I wanted to give a pick really that's like it's independent of inflation, regardless of what happens here. The restaurant industry, especially fast food, is very protected because even if food prices rise up here, maybe fine dining suffers, obviously, but pizza, really, I think everyone's going to have pizza in any economic landscape, right? It's really the cheapest meal you can really find here that fills you up. So, I mean, I think this is a strong, durable business, excellent management team, and you can see, like, let's even look at the last 6-month chart here, Syed. From January or December, where it starts, $384 a share. It had a little bit of a dip in March to about $330, and since March, it's up 30%. So, I mean, to see 30% growth from really a value pick here, and this business has been around for a long time, $17 billion market cap. It's really tremendous to see these kind of growth numbers from a well-developed and durable business like this. So I think, again, if there is more inflation to come, silver is definitely one asset class to look at. And then the restaurant industry, especially fast food, is going to be very durable. So I have mentioned Domino's here, but there's a lot more out there. Like there's McDonald's, there's Chipotle, there's so many. Starbucks is another one that comes to mind. But there's a lot of them that you can
Starbucks
choose from.
right here.
Right, exactly. So again, the restaurant industry is going to be very durable, I think, regardless. So again, if you're an investor that doesn't like to take on much risk, definitely keep an eye on this sector, if not this stock, as a long-term holding in your portfolio.
Good stuff. Yeah, this made me hungry. I'm gonna get Domino's tonight probably.
This week's episode, I actually wanted to make that special announcement that we promised in last week's episode, and that is the fact that as we're quickly approaching our 25th episode now, which is quite incredible, Syed, as you can attest to, that we've reached 25 episodes. It seems like it's gone by so quickly here, but in honor of that, reaching that milestone, we wanted to do another giveaway for you guys. So again, we're going to make a post to go over all the details of it, but again, the prize is going to be an Amazon gift card. So definitely keep your eyes on that, and we'll actually be making a post by tomorrow detailing what you will need to do to enter the giveaway. And we're really excited to have you all participate. We will be announcing the winner of the giveaway in episode 25 at the end, in the conclusion. So definitely check out next week's episode. And again, thank you guys so much for all the loyalty and all the love you've shown us. And we hope to continue to give you excellent content and break down weekly news as we continue to hear from policymakers, Janet Yellen, everyone, right? So everyone who can move the markets, we want to summarize everything that they do so that you're making informed investment decisions for yourself, which is ultimately the goal that we have here at the Bottom Line for all of our viewers. So Syed, I'll give it back to you to wrap up this week's episode.
Even in the crypto space and everything else, like, we just want to give back to you guys and the audience, and like, we want to give back to you with all the knowledge and skills that we have. We want to make sure that we can help the community out and make them stay safe, get educated, financial literacy, cybersecurity, whatever. And we mentioned this, right? And it's just incredible that we reached we're gonna reach 25 episodes next week, right? A major milestone for us, and we want to continue to help people out and get a wider audience, because the content, we believe our content can help everyone out, right? No matter what you do, what your occupation is, this is essential stuff you need to know, right? So with that being said, yes, as Deepak mentioned, we do have the giveaway coming up, and we will post we will post about it on Instagram. So that'll come out tomorrow, so be sure to check that out. And yeah, and you can enter, and the prize will be an Amazon gift card. And yeah, with that being said, this does wrap up weekly episode 24. As always, we hope that the information we provided to you was helpful, and if it was helpful in any sort of way, be sure to like this video on YouTube, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And for those of you streaming the podcast, thank you very much for your love and support there too, and also all the love and support you all show on social media as well. With that being said, I myself, Syed, and my co-host Deepak would like to thank you for tuning in, and we will talk to you guys next week and also announce the winner of the giveaway that we're going to be posting. Have a great day and great coming week ahead.